speakers. Good afternoon, Europe or Africa. Good evening if you are in Asia. My name is Laurent Polidori, and I'm the president of the Remote Sensing Technical Commission of the International Society for Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing, ISPRS. On behalf of ISPRS, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on land-use land-cover change detection, organized by one of the most active working groups dedicated to land-use land-cover change detection in the Commission, under the leadership of Professor Patricia Mwangi from Kenya, and with the support of the ISPRS Student Consortium. So thanks, Patricia, and thanks, Lashmi, for your support in the organization of this event. So we will have two lecturers today. Both of them are from Brazil, but the webinar is fully international. So I will now give the floor to Patricia, who will present the program of this event and will introduce our guest lecturer. So thank you once again, Patricia, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Laurent. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. Today we will have two highly experienced speakers. So we have Claudia and Carlos. I'll be giving a small brief about each one of them and their work experience and their research areas. A little bit just about our working group. Our working group is focused on land use, land cover changes. So I believe at the end of the webinar, Lakshmi, who is the president, ISPRS Student Consortium president, she will give more information about how you can become an individual member of ISPRS. So to start us off will be Claudia. Claudia is Dr. Claudia Maria, graduated in architecture and town planning from the University of Sao Paulo, and she owns a master's degree in infrastructure planning from the Center of Infrastructure Planning, Stuttgart, Germany, University of Stuttgart, and she's completed her PhD in remote sensing at the Center of Advanced Spatial Analysis, University College London, UK, and she's also been an affiliate researcher and has also achieved a PhD in remote sensing from the Brazilian National Institute for Space Research, INPE, in 2003. She's currently a senior researcher at INPE, where she coordinates the city's laboratory. She was a lecturer at the International Space University in 2023. She is currently a permanent professor of the graduate program in remote sensing at INPE and served as INPE's coordinator of the Brazilian Network for Advanced Computer Vision of the Federal Ministry for Science, Technology and Innovation, targeted to technological research innovation. She is at present an associate editor of the ISPRS Journal of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. So therefore, I would like to hand over to Claudia and to continue with the presentation. Thank you. Sorry, Claudia, you are muted. Claudia, you are muted. Kindly unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, sorry. So thank you for the introduction, and my special thanks to the president of the ISPRS Technical Commission III, Dr. Laurent Polidori. This lecture will be more informative and intends to give food for thought on this topic. I will briefly talk about the methodological evolution of land use and land cover mapping, change detection and modeling. Next, I will provide an overview of land use and land cover global, regional, and national databases. I will then show some recent works of my team and end up with reflections on future trends in land use and land cover mapping and modeling. Okay, can you see the second slide? Just to check.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, I found out there is a delay the moment I click and the moment it shows up on the screen. So I'll ask for your patience. So this slide shows the member of the Cities Lab at INPE, which I coordinate, and our institutional partners from Brazilian and foreign institutions. These partners are located in different regions of Brazil, South, Southeast, Central, West, in South American countries like Argentina and Peru, and also in ITC in the Netherlands. Landuse and Landcover chain are intertwined with three main research axes: classification or mapping, change detection and modeling, which refers to the simulation of past and current chains, and the generation of predictions for future time horizons. As for land use and land cover classification or mapping, we conduct a literature search for this topic, relying on the 600 most relevant out of over 20,000 papers, and the network to the right shows the main clusters, which are related to the cloud processing platform, Google Earth Engine, machine and deep learning methods, as well as accuracy assessment approaches. So the methodological timeline of LUC mapping starts in the late 70s and early 80s with visual interpretation and basic classification roles. So in the late 80s and 90s, we had statistical methods based on supervised and unsupervised pixel or region-based techniques. In the late 90s and early 2000s, we had already shallow neural networks at the onset of GEOBA, geographic object-based image analysis, dealing with multi-resolution segmentation, basic non-parametric methods on the previous decades, like K nearest neighbors, fuzzy logic, minimal distance, and so on. So these temporal landmarks are not exact and not always account for the time when the methods were created, but rather when they were widely used. In the mid-2000s and early 2010s, we had the rise of machine learning. CNNs came into scene by the mid-2010s, UNet around 2015. Between 2015 and 2017, the encoder-embedder models and the attention mechanism, GANs, generative adversarial networks, about the same time, instance segmentation a couple of years later, when panoptic segmentation and physics-informed neural networks also emerged. Vision transformers around 2020-2022, foundation models in early 2020s being popularized more recently, vision language models between 2021-2023, EarthNets was launched in 2022, and later in 2025 we had the launching of Google Earth AI. Nearly at the same time, DOFA, Dynamic One-for-All, arose. So these mentioned methods are the main ones, and this list is far from being comprehensive. Regarding LUC detection, the network reviews machine and deep learning, TEOBIA, accuracy assessment, environmental applications, and traditional methods as the most meaningful clusters. The 60s and 70s relate to the early stage and the rise of algebraic methods. The 70s and 80s were marked by a statistical approach, such as the maximum likelihood and minimum distance classifiers, also hidden in Markov chain models. Image transformations like principal component analysis, PCA, and canonic variate analysis, CVA, came in the sequence. Machine learning methods came by mid-2000s and early 2010s. CNNs and recurrent CNNs around 2010-2015. UNet, CME structure and long short-term memory networks also by 2015. Autoencoders and attention mechanisms a bit later. GANs by 2018. Instance segmentation around the same time. Linear space state models and panoptic segmentation by 2021. Vision transformers and structured state space sequence models between 2020 and 2022, foundation models and self-attention generative adversarial networks in early 2020s, vision language models and Mamba by 2021-2023, EarthNet also deals with change detection, arisen in 2022, when triplet UNet emerged. And more recently, we had DOFA, the launching of Google Earth AI, as I had previously said, change state space models and hybrid pipelines, uniting CNNs, transformers, and Mamba. The third thematic axis regards the modeling of land use and land cover change. So this slide exemplifies a modeling pipeline in which the demand for land use change at the macro level is defined by socioeconomic drivers and environmental constraints. And the change is allocated at the cells level, called micro level, as a function of local variables like infrastructure, zoning, relief, accessibility. So this model is somehow old, but it's quite effective in illustrating the whole idea of modeling. It was conceived for the Caribbean island of Santa Lucia by the Research Institute for Knowledge Systems, RICS, from the Netherlands. So the local drivers are the input variables to generate maps of transition probabilities. According to these probabilities, certain cells change their land use or land cover class, given by different colors, as we see to the right. So this change occurs at each time step throughout the simulation, and the system parameters like the population curve modify themselves along time accordingly. So these models simulate past and current contexts, and hence they are able to make predictions. So as for land use and land cover change modeling, the network shows clusters associated with simulation platforms like Landuse from the Asia Air Survey, the hydrological model HEC-HMS from the US Army, INVEST, which deals with environmental economics and is maintained under Stanford and Minnesota universities, also the Chinese Academy of Science, Nature Conservancy, World Wide Fund, and the Stockholm Resilience Center. The other clusters are associated with Dynamica Eagle, developed by the Brazilian Federal University of Minas Gerais, plus from the China University of Geosciences, and plus from the Sun Yat-sen University in China, besides dealing with the topics of cellular automata, Markov chain, and machine and deep learning. So in the late 80s and early 90s, models relied on basic rows and traditional statistical approaches. In the late 90s and 2000s, smooth-scale approaches like CLUE came into scene. By mid and late 2000s, flexible platforms arose, integrating agent-based models or carbon assessment, land use, and land cover change models. By 2010s, models start to be parameterized with machine learning methods. Around 2010-2015, coupled and hybrid modeling frameworks emerged, associating models of different purposes. From 2015 to 2020, some models were fully integrated into GIS platforms. By late 2000s and early 2010s and early 2020s, models were designed to simulate complex scenarios. From 2007 to 2019, the first models parameterized with deep learning arose. At the same time, LASTM was used for land use and land cover change predictions. Google Earth Engine started to be used for modeling by late 2010s and early 2020s. Vision transformers around 2022. Generative AI was incorporated in modeling by Clark University in association with Washington University around 2023. Last year, foundation models like Almeida came into scene. DOFA is used, in fact, only as input for land use and land cover change models. And also last year, vision language models were incorporated into land use and land cover simulations. And concerning world land use and land cover data sets, let's start with the high resolution ones. So the European Space Agency keeps the high accuracy world cover using Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 imagery with 10 meters of spatial resolution, dealing with 11 land cover classes extracted using advanced graded boost and decision tree for 2020 and 2020-21. And this data set is natively hosted in Google Earth Engine and Amazon Web Service. The European Union Copernicus dataset, in close partnership with ESA and EUMETSAT Incorporated Corini Products, relies on Sentinel, Landsat, Spot, Rapid Eye, and Formosat imagery, besides data from weather stations, drones, and aerial photos. It complies with ISPRS guidelines, offers resolutions of 10 and 5 meters with 11 Landcover classes from 2020 onwards using the EvoNet deep learning architecture. It details hotspot areas and also delivers near real-time biogeophysical variable series like spectral indices, land surface temperature, soil moisture, and ground movements through INSAR. ESRI keeps a global look data set based on Sentinel-2 using deep learning and massive cloud computing from Microsoft and Amazon. It offers 10 meters of resolution and 9 land use and land cover classes from 2017 onward, and it's very useful for change detection. Dynamic World is a partnership between the World Resources Institute, Google DeepMind, and Google Earth Engine, which uses AI to map and monitor land use and land cover in near real time with 10 meters of spatial resolution based on Sentinel-2 images. The drivers of deforestation are mapped with 1 kilometer resolution. It is continuously updated every 2 to 5 days, dealing with 9 land use land cover classes. It is very useful for change detection, especially of fast shifts. It offers the functionality of customized derivative maps and is integrated to Google Earth Engine. GLAD is maintained by the U.S. University of Maryland, deals with 10 land cover classes, and is updated every 2 to 5 days. It offers a 30-meter resolution, counting on Landsat imagery from the late 90s to the present, and also Sentinel-2 more recently. MODIS has been used also to calibrate seasonal vegetation patterns. It allows interannual comparison by removing clouds, shadow, and atmospheric haze, and GLAD incorporates digital elevation models, climatic data to differentiate classes, and also relies on random forest classifier based on visually interpreted samples. GLANCE is a joint initiative of Boston University, NASA, and other institutions. It not only provides aesthetic maps from 1984 to 2020, but also tracks change from 2001 to 2021, identifying the exact year when a sudden or gradual change took place. It offers time series of vegetation spectral indices, which are also used for classification with segmentation and random forests. It offers 30-meter resolution and counts on Landsat imagery besides MODIS images, and also harmonized regional data sets, all processed in Google Earth Engine. The National Geomatics Center of China keeps the global Land 30 dataset. So it is available for the years 2000 and 2010 with further updates. The spatial resolution is 30 meters. It adopts 10 land cover classes extracted by a mixture of pixel-based and GeoBia approaches. The 2020 update includes Antarctica. It is available in WebGeo portal for users' queries and validation. It counts on Landsat imagery, the Chinese satellites Huanjing-1 and Gaofen, digital elevation models, and also auxiliary and reference data sets, which include MODIS data as well. From Global Land Cover 10 was created by the Chinese Tsinghua University using Sentinel-2 imagery processed in Google Earth Engine, refining the From Global Land Cover 30 for the 2017 year. So data were processed in GE. This database adopts 10 land cover classes, which are extracted with random forest algorithms. The low to medium resolution land use and land cover data sets include the Copernicus 100-meter dataset, officially called the Global Dynamic Land Cover Product. It extends from 2015 to 2019 using ProbaV and also a combination of Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 images. It deals with 23 land cover classes, both discrete and continuous, that is to say, fractional cover layers extracted by traditional machine learning approaches. ISA keeps the Climate Change Initiative Landcover, now operationalized by Copernicus. It annually extends from 1992 up to 2022, contains 22 land cover classes according to FAO's land cover classification system, which are extracted by a hybrid classification chain combining ISO data and random forests. Data are released with 300 meters, merging data from AVHRR, Spot VGT, ProbaV, Sentinel-3. It delivers derivative products like soil moisture, spectral indices, mean chlorophyll, trophic state index, among others. MODIS Terra and Aqua MCD12Q1 data from NASA are available from 2001 onwards with a resolution of 500 meters. It is data meant for climate and environmental studies. They are produced with the aid of supervised machine learning classifiers and deal with 6 different classification schemes, for instance, IGBP, UMD, PFT, plant functional types, with land cover classes ranging from 18 to 17. The land use harmonization to global carbon budget datasets maintained by NASA Earth Data and provides land use and land cover information and transitions for the period extending from 850 to 2019 with further updates. These data drive climate models, including data on wood harvesting, shifting cultivations, and so on, of approximately 25 kilometers of resolution. It does not classify images and is rather a harmonization model using ISA CCI dataset and images from AVHRR, Spot VGT, ProbaV, Sentinel-3, besides national agricultural statistics and historical census data containing 12 land use and land cover classes. Finally, the SAGE dataset was elaborated by the University of Wisconsin-Madison, US, using MODIS sensors. It also includes demographic and agricultural statistics and global climate observations. It provides data on river discharge, mainly from the USGS and international water departments. It releases data on population, agriculture, cattle raising, and built-up land, with a resolution of 50 kilometers for global land use and crop calendar from 1992 onwards, and with 10 kilometers for crop calendars and historical cropland mappings from 1700 to 1992. Global urban extent and U.S. irrigated lands are released with 500 meters, urban land and expansion in East and Southeast Asia with 250 meters, and Landsat-based irrigation data sets with 30 meters. Some reflections are due on these world land use and land cover data sets. Time series, these data sets, they offer global consistency. Time series analysis with historical paths and near real-time updates, derivative data with aggregated value, and they are also generally open access and free. They are very used for change detection assessment. And the problem is that, on the other hand, also they serve as input for global models, but on the other hand, they have problems with spatial resolution. Some datasets are still coarse for certain applications like urban areas. There are also problems of thematic accuracy and misclassification occur between spectrally similar classes. Some of them contain regional bias, present semantic conflicts because they have different structuring for the legends, and sometimes they inappropriately blend land use and land cover. In terms of thematic global data sets, as we all know, they are available like Google Street View and Google Earth, both with historical path and 3D view. The Global Building Atlas with level of detail Lot 1 from the Technical University of Munich in Germany. The OpenStreetMap from the open source Geospatial Foundation, and the NASA SWOT satellite database containing rasterized water elevations, vector products for lake river levels, and ADIR altimeter data covering ocean eddies, rivers, and lakes, just to mention a few examples. Lately, Earth databases have been enhanced with AI. EarthNets, which was launched in October 2022, is an independent open-source deep learning platform developed primarily by researchers at the Technical University of Munich and the German Space DLR. It provides a unified framework for loading remote sensing data and executing AI tasks like semantic segmentation, object detection, and change detection. This platform aggregates and standardizes over 400 publicly published Earth observation benchmark datasets from diverse global sensors, although it mainly explores ESA satellite data. And by standardizing training and test splits and decoupling data loading from high-level modeling, it can provide a centralized bias-free environment for fair and reproduced evaluation of AI algorithms. Google launched Earth AI 3 years later, in 2025. It utilized a Gemini-powered agent to process complex multi-step environmental analysis via natural language queries. It leverages integrated satellite and radar data for real-time flood forecasting, wildfire detection, and extreme weather monitoring. It autonomously selects and applies the most appropriate geospatial foundation models to answer specific real-world questions. It converts static map layers and massive Earth observation data sets into dynamic, easily digestible insights. It also acts as a comprehensive platform to aid in climate modeling, disaster response, and environmental management. Google Earth AI has applications in environmental and health domains like critical flood and flash flood forecasting, global weather and tropical cyclone predictions, atmospheric simulations in global climate models, GCMs, assessing air quality and risks of exposure to allergenic pollen, and also providing wildfires information to affected communities and authorities. It also assesses vaccination coverage, provides insights on the dynamics of human behavior, and support information on urban transportation and mobility, besides informing communities with early storm forecasts and alerts. An interesting application is the immersive experience according to weather forecasts. For instance, here, if you click on the Google Earth AI page, you see that a person can visualize how the outer area of the Louvre Museum in Paris will look like on a certain day of the week, either if it's rainy, cloudy, or sunny. Google Earth Engine AI connects with Google Cloud to employ and implement custom deep learning models across planetary scale satellite archives. It provides scalable, ready-to-use machine learning algorithms directly within the code editor. It facilitates end-to-end workflows using TensorFlow, PyTorch for high-resolution semantic segmentation and object detection. It merges decades of time series Earth observation data with advanced neural networks for climate and environmental monitoring. And it also supports the dynamic web applications powered by trained AI models for real-time inference and visualization. In fact, GEE is somehow more powerful for modeling than Google Earth AI, as we may see later. So concerning regional land use and Landcover data sets, we ought to mention Map Biomas Brazil, an initiative led by Tasso Azevedo, a Brazilian environmentalist, in collaboration with Brazilian NGOs, universities, and technology startups. It generates diverse categories of data: land use and land cover, water surface, fire scars, soil carbon stock, agriculture, pasture, mining, secondary vegetation, deforestation, degradation, coral reefs, and urban area maps for the whole country. The predominant resolution is 30 meters, and the products are generated using Landsat and Sentinel imagery and auxiliary data by means of random forest and deep learning algorithms, followed by post-process filtering executed in Google Earth Engine. Map Biomas has been extended to South American countries for the generation of land use and land cover maps in the biomes of Amazon, Chaco, Pampa, and the Atlantic rainforest, besides thematic products like water extent, fire scars, and deforestation alerts. So likewise, it has also been extended to Indonesia, where it provides detailed annual land cover and land use maps of over 11 classes from 2000 to 2024, besides transition maps showing land chains over time, meant to track deforestation, plantation expansion, and water dynamics with future plans for fire and alert products as it already occurs with Map Biomas Brazil. Now focusing on regional data sets in Brazil, particularly the ones from my institute, INPE, we can mention the Biomas Brazil program, which contains 3 projects. PRODIS, which yearly monitors natural vegetation suppression in the Amazon, Cerrado, Pampa, Pantanal, Atlantic Forest, and Caatinga biomes. We also have the TER, that daily monitors natural vegetation suppression in the Amazon, Cerrado, and Pampa biomes, and TerraClass, which monitors land use and land cover change path after the natural vegetation suppression in the Amazon and Cerrado biomes. All these products apply linear spectrum mixture analysis followed by segmentation and random forest classifier, which are finally audited by experts. As for national land use and land cover data cubes, they lie within the conceptual domain of National Spatial Data Infrastructure, NSDI. As of 2018, there were over 100 countries involved in all these initiatives, either with operational cubes in development or having expressed interest, as we see here. The Brazil Data Cube, hosted at INPE, transforms massive archives of diverse satellite imagery into standardized multidimensional analysis-ready data, ARD cubes, to enable efficient, cloud-based automated machine and deep learning analysis of land use and land cover trajectories. So the BDC processes and harmonizes massive satellite archives, including CBUS, the China-Brazil Earth Resource Satellite, Landsat, and Sentinel, into continuous multidimensional ARD cubes. It also provides a robust open source ecosystem, including web services, for instance, Spatial Temporal Catalog, ASTAC, WebTime Series Service, WTSS, and Webland Trajectory Service, WLTS. Also, it renders available Python libraries to easily query, access, and manipulate these data sets. And to conclude this presentation, I will show you a piece of examples of recent works in land use and land cover mapping achieved by my team at the Cities Lab. They are mainly focused on urban areas, and hence they deal with very refined legend levels. So a former PhD student of mine, Mrs. Andrews Lacerda, worked with images from Worldview 2 and the airborne hyperspectral sensor ProSpectre with 1 meter of spatial resolution. She classified 38 land cover classes, and with the Spectre images, she obtained an overall accuracy of over 90% and a kappa index of nearly 0.9 using the random forest classifier. So with 357 bands at hand, we could not dedicate ourselves to classify just 10 or dozen classes. As an extension of her work, a master's student at that time, Mr. Ruiz, conducted his research in the same area using Worldview 3 imagery and the Logistic Model 3 LMT classifier. So he achieved 42 land cover classes, 4 more, and these works were accomplished in mid-2010s. At that time, they were cutting-edge works because in the literature, just a little over 20 classes have been reported till then. The IEEE Geoscience and Remote Sensing Society, GRSS, in its 2017 Data Fusion Contest, counting with over 800 teams from all over the world, posed the challenge of classifying 17 Landcover classes extracted from Landsat 8 and Land Sentinel-2 imagery downsampled to 100 meters. These teams were ranked by the attained overall accuracy and kappa index. So this former student of mine, Mrs. Anjos Lacerda, at that time she was a former lieutenant from the Brazilian Air Force. She led the team that was granted the third position in this contest, where they used exactly the same methodology developed in her PhD dissertation that we saw in the previous slide. So she adopted Geobia with the random forest classifier and several input variables like PCA, spectral indices, HIS, and minimal noise fraction bands. This work refers to the master thesis of a former master student under my supervision, Rômulo Carvalho. His work dealt with Landcover classification for a small city, São Caetano do Sul, belonging to the metropolitan region of São Paulo. He used DeepLab V3 Plus CNN, having ResNet 18 as backbone. So this network was trained with 10,000 sample tiles with 128 by 128 pixels per epoch, and the training comprised 100 epochs. The tiles were labeled through random forests based on fieldwork inspections and also on Google Street View. And outperforming our previous works, this thesis achieved 90 Landcover classes. So a pair of WorldView 2 images was used to generate a digital elevation model, explored as an input band for classification. It was employed to auto-rectify a WorldView 3 image, which was actually used for classification. And this shows us a very refined intra-urban Landcover classification. This work is currently under review. Some people wonder why dealing with so many classes and potential applications would be having more accurate assessment of land surface temperature and urban heat islands according to the Landcover materials, discriminating between permanent and removable roofs, for example, between weathered fiber cement roof tiles and weathered concrete decks, which show spectrally similar responses, as well as identifying regularly built swimming pools for the purpose of taxation. Differentiating hazardous materials from safe ones, like fiber cement tiles with and without asbestos, which is acknowledged worldwide as carcinogenic, and some other applications that we currently cannot envisage yet. Now we move to some examples of land use and Landcover change modeling at different scales. Modeling is in fact my original field of research. This slide shows part of my PhD thesis. This is an animation of interurban land use change carried out in Brazilian platform Dinâmica Eagle for the city of Piracicaba, southeast of Brazil. So it was run from steps of 1 year, from 1967 to 2000, with a detailed categorization of land uses like residential, commercial, industrial, leisure, services, and so forth. This is the PhD research of a student, Wilson Francis Silva, supervised by a colleague of mine, Dr. Adami, and co-supervised by me. It deals with the simulation of land use Landcover classes with a focus on the soybeans culture throughout continental Brazil from 2013 to 2022. The data were basically obtained from GLAD and MAP Biomas datasets. The biomes were handled separately, and here we see some simulations for the Amazon and Cerrado, which are shown side by side with real or reference land use and Landcover maps. This work comprises more than 60 transitions, and due to the enormous amount of data being in fact a big data project, all processing was carried out on INPE's supercomputer infrastructure. Short-term predictions are foreseen for the time horizon of 2032, nearly 10 years ahead from the end of past simulations. I will close this presentation with land use and Landcover mapping and modeling trends. Some time ago, I had the idea of having projections of future scenarios in global data sets, and I later came to know it already existed. So since early 2018, LEU82 renders available yearly future scenarios of land use and land cover change from 2015 to 2100 with 25 kilometers of spatial resolution. It is important to state that Google Earth AI does not currently provide generalized long-term global look projections. However, Google is actively moving to short-term specialized predictive forecasting. Google Earth AI suites include specific predictive tools like deforestation risk forecasting, a deep learning-powered model and benchmark dataset that, instead of relying on socioeconomic input maps, uses pure satellite data to predict forest loss. Alpha Earth Foundations, a geospatial foundation model, does not output finished land use and land cover projection. Rather, it provides dense environmental imagery embeddings, which are then used by researchers to train their own downstream models. And Dynamical World does not project future states either, but Google Earth Engine can be used to host and analyze the modeling input data sets. So Google Earth Engine can actually act as a modeling platform. This is an example of the graphical user interface of Dynamica Eagle modeling platform, meant to demonstrate that some functionalities are not yet streamlined in cloud processing platforms like GEE. So any given deep network does not simulate land use and land cover change, properly speaking. That is to say, a network does not allocate change. Instead, it provides a transition probabilities map. Deep networks do not cope with dynamic variables, which are those that are recalculated at each time step. For instance, distance to simulated land use land cover classes in the previous iteration. So in this way, a new deep network has to be executed, reading the distance to the classes simulated in the land use land cover map output in the previous time step. So the model in this graphical user interface can also be entirely executed in Python. I'm using this graphical user interface for the sake of interpretability. In sum, it's not useful to have deep networks decoupled from modeling platforms at the moment, but the solution is rather to integrate them. So some reflections on trends. It's worth mentioning that land use and land cover databases, AI agents, retrieval augmented generation, RAG, and the model context protocol MCP points toward a massive paradigm shift in remote sensing. We are transitioning from static data repositories to conversational agentic spatial data infrastructures. GeoRag understands spatial vectors, raster metadata, and temporal bounds, and instead of manually querying bounding boxes and data ranges, researchers will make queries like, please find areas in the Amazon with an anomalous drop in vegetation index preceding deforestation between 2020 and 2025, for instance. Multimodal grounding is the whole idea that the retrieval engine will localize climate data, remote sensing imagery, and publish literature, Scopus or Web of Science, for instance. MCP allows AI agents to hook directly to these massive spatial catalogs, for instance, Stack, Google Earth Engine. And through MCP servers, AI agents will natively understand how to interface with diverse APIs without users' interference. When analyzing a specific biome, MCP, for instance, can allow the agent to pull massive remote sensing time series directly into its context window, executing a localized analysis on the fly. AI agents will evolve from simple coding assistants into autonomous research partners capable of executing complex spatial workflows, what is somehow already happening. An agent could use MCP to connect to a land use land cover database, retrieve targeted satellite imagery using GeoRag, and autonomously implement advanced vision models. The agent can, for instance, autonomously perform rigorous statistical evaluations, choosing between unicaudal or bicaudal t-tests to evaluate the significance of coverage chains, or run segmented regression to detect meaningful breaks in deforestation trends over time. And finally, an AI agent powered by MCP can monitor new publications, extract novel methodologies or self-attention mechanisms via REG, and immediately test those new approaches against the many land use and Landcover data sets. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Claudia, for that very interesting and engaging session. Thank you all for those who put in your questions in the Q&A, as well as also in the chat. In the chat, we'll try answer them as soon as possible. For the Q&A, we will ask the questions after both presentations, so keep the questions coming in. So next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Carlos. So, Dr. Carlos, yes, I would like to introduce you. So, Dr. Carlos holds a bachelor's degree in geology from Pará State Federal University, Brazil, and an MSc in soil science from Penn State University, US, and a PhD in geography from the University of California, Santa Barbara, US. He is currently an associate researcher at Amazon, focusing on remote sensing for mapping and monitoring forests, forest degradation, land use and land cover change, surface water monitoring, and spatial modeling. Dr. SOUZA has published 200 journal articles, conference papers, and book chapters, and he has been honored with a SCORE Award and is a Mulago Foundation Fellow. So thank you very much. I would now like to request Dr. Carlos to begin his presentation. You're welcome.
Thank you, Patricia, for the introduction, Laurent, for inviting me for this workshop, webinar, and Claudia for the great presentation review that covers a lot of good stuff about land use and cover change modeling trends. And good morning and good evening to everyone who is watching us. I'm going to share my screen to get started. And please let me know when you have it. Okay. Can you see my slides now?
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I will talk about Landcover and water dynamics, focus on applications of conservation and climate change adaptation in the Amazon region. My presentation will follow these topics. I will introduce Amazon and our deforestation monitoring program. I'll provide some context about the Amazon region and drivers of deforestation, degradation, infrastructure development, and so on. Then I will focus on the monitoring system that we have developed at Amazon and discuss the challenges for the conservation regarding land use change and climate change, infrastructure development. And conclude my presentation with some take-home messages. I joined the organization in 1992. So this year we will be 36 years old. Last year was 35 years old organization. So I'm 34 years working at Amazon, developed my career through the Institute and use the Amazon region to learn and develop the applications that I will share with you today. Let me move on. Okay, start with Amazon. As I said, the organization was founded back in 1990. It's a non-for-profit organization. Our founder was Dr. Christoph Yu, who unfortunately passed away recently. And so Chris Yu was a professor from Penn State University. He came to the Amazon starting in Venezuela, went to Manaus. It was in the late 80s. And then he came to the Eastern Amazon when he realized that deforestation was advancing much faster in this region. And he decided to create this organization, focus on research methods to address sustainability questions about the Amazon, how to create solid scientific information to dialogue with different stakeholders to promote sustainable development in the Amazon, which is our core mission. We do that as through research. We address public policy implementation. We go beyond research because we want to use the results to support policy implementation. We'll share some examples during my presentation. And we also have a strategic communication approach to widely inform the society, all the sectors, private, government, communities. And we also implement capacity building to transfer technology, support implementation of public policies. Those are the programs that we have currently in the organization. I will talk about the Amazon monitoring program per se, which has this approach. We start with solid measurement using remote sensing data, and we perform analysis of this, the information derived from remote sensing and other ground verification and socioeconomic secondary data. Then we, as I said, we have this strategic communication approach to inform broadly our target audience, and the components of acting, which is related to the implementation support of the implementation of public policies, is critical. And in the end of the day, we want to evaluate it. This whole package, it's working, so we address we do a lot of impact evaluation during especially to assess if the policies are delivering the positive or negative effects to promote sustainable development in the region. It's a collective impact approach, and I will illustrate that during my presentation. Starting with the context now. So we published this paper. It was led by Ana Rodrigues, Portuguese researcher, who was doing a postdoc by that time, and she wanted to understand this boom and bust cycle. So this cycle means that you can, with deforestation, logging, we provide some economic inputs in these cities, rural areas, which creates some fast development in terms of economic gains, but rarely promotes. This is not a sustainable process. It doesn't promote social economic welfare in the long term. So we start growing economically using all the resources from the forest, and then it shifts to agriculture, mostly pasture. And then we have a low productivity pressure, degraded pastures in the region. I will demonstrate that in my presentation. And then this economic boom declines, and then you advance in other frontiers. That's like the overall trend in the region. So as I said, there is a fixing here. Relative standard of living, literacy, life expectancy increase in the beginning, but then declines, and it does not promote sustainable development in the region. That's the overall for most of the municipalities in the region. So besides land use drivers, we also have climate change impacts in the region. I will talk about this, I will demonstrate, but most of my work, I was interested in the beginning of my career in improving the mapping of forest degradation associated with logging, and also developing methodologies to operationalize forest monitoring in the region. And back in 2017, I was invited by Greenpeace to do a review with Dr. José Marengo, try to understand how the land use, land cover change drivers and climate change drivers are modifying the Amazon, are impacting the Amazon. So it was a great report that we put together. I learned quite a lot about this, and then I became interested in understanding more this process since then. In this report, we were able to do a review, a more detailed analysis, and publish this paper. And there are some concrete indicators of that the Amazon region is changing. So temperature is increasing. So this is showing from different models. And then we review that. By that time, there is a trend of increasing temperature. In some regions, we have crossed the 1.5 Celsius degree temperature increase relative to this we evaluated from 1961 to 1990. That's that's the period that we use as a baseline. So there is a clear increase in temperature in the region. Some regions reached 3 graus Celsius, 3 degrees Celsius of temperature increase. So it's really getting hot in the region. Precipitation is also reducing. This graph shows in dark blue. We have in the x-axis months, and in the y-axis the years. Now this data goes up from 1961 to 2014. We have more recent data, but overall, what we show that between May and September, which is like the main dry season, we have a trend in increasing the length and duration of the dry season in the region. So we have drier and longer dry season in the region, and that's the overall trend for the Amazon. And we also have more extreme droughts. So I have some examples: 2005, 2010, 2015, 16, and more recently the 2023, 2024 droughts, which was very severe. And I will show some results of the mapping of this drought effect in the aquatic ecosystem in the region. So this is like solid science. It's being addressed by the IPCC, and there are solid, good measurement on the ground as well on the impact of land cover, and also in pasture productivity, agricultural productivity, and this is a challenge. So both the land use, land cover change, together with the climate change drivers, increases the challenge to put the Amazon in a conservation, sustainability direction. Before, as I said, before that report, I was mostly focused on monitoring land use and cover change, addressing forests related to deforestation and degradation. But it was clear that I had to start studying the aquatic ecosystem. This is a photo of a garden, a Victoria Regia garden, which is Rhizomatous herbaceous plants. It's very common in Brazil, Bolivia, Guyana rivers. And you can see there is a small boat and some infrastructure here. This is a community that started this garden this is in the Santarém region. And they found some Victoria Regia species that are good for gastronomy. So this area became very famous and was included in the tourism route in that region. They became very successful. This is an example of the potential of the bioeconomy of the region. So this was the first case where they explored this type of plants in gastronomy. It was a big success, but the The drought in 2004 hit this region drastically. You can see a drastic change. It dried out and they lost 95% of the plants. So it affects the well-being of the community, the socio-economic also dropped, the indicators dropped drastically. So this is an example of how climate change can hit intensively the communities in the region and affect disrupt their life, the economy, the social welfare, etc. So we were really interested in understanding the scale of this impact, and of course, remote sensing is the way to do it. So the problem is that when we have those severe droughts, the ecosystem doesn't recover quickly, especially the aquatic ecosystem. And the recurrent droughts also increase the risk of a tipping point. So my overall approach now is try to understand early signs of tipping point in the region. If we can, the aquatic ecosystem can ring the alarm, and there is potential for us to use this information and inform the decision-making process stakeholders to try to change this course of reaching a tipping point scenario in the Amazon region. But there are some really severe changes already happening at the local level. So how we address this mapping monitoring approach? This is the package that we have developed over the years. I will cover and address in detail the systems. The core of our methodology is based on spectrum mixture analysis. And I have derived a spectrum mixing model, generic spectrum mixing model in my PhD research. I developed a spectral index called NDFI, Normalized Differentiating Fractional Index, which allows us to improve the detection of logging and subtle changes in the forest, and improves also the mapping of deforestation. So the core methodology is based on spectrum mixing. For the land cover change, I joined the Map Biomas. I'm a co-creator, co-founder of Map Biomas. Tasso approached me back in 2014, end of 2014, 2015, Map Biomas was launched. I stayed in the Map Biomas network until last year, after 10 years in Map Biomas. And the network is scaling now. It's in 14 countries now. I'm addressing AI in this stage of my career. I decided to step out of Map Biomas, but I still support Map Biomas. Amazon is part of the network, but I'm not involved deeply. But with Map Biomas, we were able to understand this change of forest to land use classes like agriculture, cattle ranching, urbanization, coal mining. So we were able to improve the mapping of this land use and also quantify the transition of the land use. Road expansion, it's a big problem. It's the beginning of the process of occupation process that it starts usually with logging, and then logging is a source of money. This money is reinvested to clear cut the forest and settle down and expand to the next frontier. So it's really important to keep track of roads. I will explain how we are doing that using AI. And using this information, we have a deforestation forecast model called Previsa, which is also we cover. All the technology, remote sensing methodology that we apply to understand forest, land use, and cover change dynamics, they were perfected, adapted to the aquatic ecosystem. So, but essentially it's the same model, but we calibrate the model to respond to changes in surface water, especially spectrum mixing. It's good because it allows us to deal with the mixing of vegetation, water, soil at the subpixel level, decompose this information, use the compositional fractional information to better classify the ecosystem. So I will now explain in more detail each one of these methodologies. Okay, starting with Landcover dynamics, as I mentioned, it's part of the Map Biomas project. We have the Map Biomas is in Brazil focusing in the biomes. Amazon leads the mapping and monitoring of the Amazon biome. And we published in 2022 this paper, 23. I have the reference here. The annual mapping it was published in 2023, and the time series goes from 1985 to 2022. But it's updated now. We have the data up to 2025. But this allows us to understand this annual transition among the land use classes. We focus on 10 fundamental classes in the Amazon biome. The Map Biomas has a methodology to integrate maps, like specific maps of like mining. Gold mining is mapped separately with AI, and then this information is integrated with the fundamental land cover map. And there are several other classes that they map in Map Biomas separately and integrate with the base land cover map. But here in the Amazon region, at Amazon, we focus on the same fundamental classes only. And what we can do with this data. So first thing I want to address is like if we have a solid annual land cover map, it is possible to measure this transition, to derive annual deforestation statistics. And this is part of the paper. The statistics now in the graph shows the 1985 to 2024 period. It allowed us to detect also secondary growth and keep track of deforestation of secondary growth. So we were able to measure both the primary forest conversion and also the conversion of secondary growth. Most of the conversion goes to pasture land. About 70% is of the forest clearing is for cattle ranching activity. And then we can see the expansion, this concept of arc of deforestation that goes from the southern border of the region to the eastern border. Is no longer an arc. There are entrenchings, expansion to the core of the region along the main highways. We have the BR 163 and pointing my mouse, the new deforestation. The reddish colors are the new deforestation frontiers. So it's clear that the deforestation is advancing in a fast pace to the core of the region. Logging, it's also a very important driver of change. As I said, it helps to finance deforestation because people can restrict the trees, commercial trees, sell them, capitalize, and use this to clear cuts and introduce cattle ranching, and followed by agriculture. So we have a system called CMAX, and we do this analysis using the NDFI index, where we can enhance the detection of logging. We can see the light greens are the damaged trees, and the yellow dots are the log landings. Those are small clearings. You can see some traces, lines of the roads created to exploit logging. In this other case on the right, it's a totally unplanned, unmanaged logging activities. Like they are not building the infrastructure, and they are just extracting the trees. In these areas, this type of logging usually quickly converts to deforestation. And we also have AI models to detect logging. The model is already, we published in the ISPRS symposium here in Brazil, Belém, and then we are now scaling this for the 2025 CMEX report. We are going to use AI only. So it's really a new tool that will accelerate the monitoring of logging. And AI is revolutionizing. As Claudia showed, it's advancing very fast. And I think this is the new trend in our geospatial remote sensing arena. So how to use this information to support policy implementation? There is a big demand for traceability of logging, and we collaborated with Carolina Franca. She was doing a PhD. She used the CMEX data and integrated the CMEX data with the permits, authorization for logging by the state of Pará. And we were able to demonstrate that it's possible to integrate this data from the organizations, the government organizations that are managing, controlling logging operation with satellite data. And we have geolocated 96% of the officially reported timber volume and using polygons and coordinates. We were able to assess the level of traceability for the volume of timber extracted. 45% of the observed logging activities can be traced. There's areas that were authorized but never harvested. So the timber is coming from elsewhere, but they get the authorization. They have the timber credits to use for commercialize the timber, but the place they say they are harvesting is not the place that was authorized. That's why we are not able to fully trace the origin of the timber. But we were able to reference all the timber authorization, but only 45% was traceable. So it's possible to improve this, and we use this information to enforce the law. That's the challenge, how to go about the areas. We also know from CMEX the areas that were logged and had no authorization. So you should target those areas for law enforcement. So improving this way the traceability and control of timber extraction. Most of the timber, at least around 50% is illegal. That's the big message here. Now, road mapping. We used to do this through visual interpretation, doing hand digitizing. It was clear that we need to trace those lines that are associated with roads, because those lines, those roads are unofficial. They are not in the official maps. Only the official roads are in the maps. And there are much more roads that are being built by loggers, gold miners, the process of land grabbing. It's all connected with these roads. So previous studies show that these roads are intimately linked to deforestation, and also collaborating with PhD students. Chris Barber analyzed it back down here on the left. We have deforestation correlation with these roads. 95% of the cumulative deforestation is within 5.5 kilometers. That's the result of this analysis. In Sanaf, another PhD student also investigated the correlation of fires with roads. 85% of the annual fires are within 5 kilometers from all roads. So mapping those roads is really important if you really want to keep track of where the changes will likely happen in the short term. That's why we decide to build an AI model, to develop an AI model to be able to do the monitor of road annually. So in the past, we were doing this every 2 years. It was labor intensive, and we stopped doing that in 2016. But with the advancement of AI models, we were able to implement a successful model to detect those roads. I have an example here of a Sentinel color composites, Sweeney red bands using a UNet. We use our hand digitized data, road data to train the model. And we have this raster output and do some post-processing analysis to vectorize and get the final vector road layers. And the results were really astonishing. We found that 55% of the roads, they were in private lands. This map shows road density, kilometers of roads per square kilometer. And this is the scale, the gradient here. 25% of the roads in undesignated public lands. Those are open forest public lands that have that belongs to the government, either federal or state governments. The areas are open, undesignated, and open for occupation. Those are the targets of those roads. 41% of forests crossed by 41% of forests are crossed by roads or located within up to 10 kilometers from the roads. Those are the light green colors. Those are forests cut by roads or very close to roads. That's what this map is depicting. In the dark green colors are the roadless forests. This is a very important ecological indicator. So if you have no roads in the forest, so it's very unlikely that you have some degradation going on and biodiversity loss, carbon loss. But the light green region of the Amazon forest are the area that are under risk of deforestation expansion in logging and mining and so on. So I also collaborate with Bill Lawrence and Jade Anger. Bill's a PhD student. He was very interested in mapping roads. He did a kind of OpenStreetMap approach to map roads in Southeast Asia and the Congo Basin. So combining all the data, and he was able to develop a model that predicts the risk of road expansion. And that now we have this information for these 3 regions. I think it's really important to be able to model it and understand the risk of road expansion, because this road expansion will lead to the degradation, deforestation, biodiversity loss, carbon emissions. So if you anticipate, keep track of those risks, put public policy efforts to control the damage in these areas, we are more likely to succeed in conserving tropical forest regions. I have the paper. I'll share the presentation. You can take a look at the papers in detail. For deforestation forecast, which is another model, this was developed by our team, the statistician Master Salles, and developed this model. We have a spatial temporal geostatistical hurdle model for short-term deforestation prediction. By short term, we mean we want to be able to forecast deforestation within 1 year. And this, it's really important, because if you really want to address the control of deforestation, degradation the following year, it's important to have updated deforestation forecast information. And we were invited by Microsoft Brazil and Fundo Vale, which is a philanthropic branch of the Vale mining company in Brazil, to develop the Previsia model. It was back in 2020. And we had the the paper published in 2017. But we didn't have the capability to operationalize this model and put this to work on an annual basis. And that was the idea of Previsia platform. So it has three components. One is information technology. We had already a great presentation from Claudia showing how the development of cloud computing, which is essential, and algorithms are open source now. So this is the whole package of information technology. It's done. I think this part of the component is really advanced. The deforestation forecast model, we had the model, we had to implement the model and assess the performance of the model. So I will share some information about that. And the third component is the collaborative impact approach, which for me is the most important component. And the idea is to put information and knowledge for action. So our community is very pleased to have data ready for analysis. And I think with this, we can extract information from the data and knowledge, understand of the process. And we need to use this new knowledge and put this information on the hands of the organizations that can control, avoid deforestation, implement public policy. So how to scale this depends on this collaborative impact approach, which is the most important component of our project. I'll go quickly through the model. Check my time here. We have several variables: human settlement, roads, deforestation. For deforestation, it is important to understand that we were, with our model, we were able to assess the spatial temporal correlation of deforestation, which allows us to separate the old deforestation frontier from the mid deforestation frontiers and the new ones. So, which means if you have a new deforestation frontier, the forest close to this frontier will more likely to be deforested. Whereas if you have an old frontier, the process is stabilized, adjacent remaining forest will have a lower likelihood of deforestation. So the model has to capture this transition of deforestation and the spatial temporal correlation. It's a good metric to inform the model where are more likely to deforest relative to the distance from the deforestation frontier and the age of the deforestation frontier. Municipal industrial GDP, it's another important variable. All the protected areas, including state conservation units, federal conservation units, indigenous land, population density at the census tract level, and we also need to know the natural barriers like water bodies and topography, roughness. We use all this in the model. So essentially the model is a geostatistical model. And the road information is one of the most powerful predictable variables. That's why we need to implement the AI road detection model to keep track of roads annually to make this model more robust to predict deforestation for the following year. Here is some example. We have data from 2021 to 2025, and then we are comparing Previsia with Prodius. This is the case of Mato Grosso State we have for the whole region. And we see that our model, we translate the model in levels of deforestation risk from very low, which is the purple color, to very high risk, which is the reddish color. And black polygon in this animation are the Prodius polygons. So we were able to compare year to year the prediction against what really happens. And the correlation is quite high. And then we see the different levels of risk. And the R-square is 0.83. We are now wrapping up these results. If we take, for example, the scale of the model is 1 square kilometer pixel. We can go down to 1 hectare. So, but I think we only for local application that we are zooming in and have more detailed risk. But if you take like the rural cadastral system of property boundaries, we also compare the model against the risk of deforestation at the property level. And we figured out that around 6% of the rural properties have 80 to 85% of the deforestation in private lands. So if we target like 5-6% of these properties, we were able to anticipate and avoid deforestation. I usually say that the success of Previsa is to have this forecast wrong. We don't want to hit this level of deforestation that we predict. If it happens that deforestation is dropping, the model won't succeed, but we will succeed in protecting the forest. So it's another way to say is like if you have interventions, policy interventions to control deforestation and prevent deforestation, we were able to avoid deforestation and also identify, demonstrate in a transparent way the efforts to avoid deforestation. This can be translated in carbon credits. There is this new tropical forest financing mechanism that was launched in COP30 here in Belém. And this is an opportunity for government, the state government of Mato Grosso is very interested now. They are in the early movers program. They are interested in using Previsa to address these interventions and demonstrate the amount of forest that can be saved with these interventions. Now I'm going to have to accelerate a little bit. I'm still in the aquatic ecosystem. As I mentioned before, we use spectrum mixing. We are comparing 3 different products. On the left, the annual frequency of mapbiomas. Mapbiomas is an annual and does that in an annual fashion, Landuse Landcover map. So we can see the frequency of water detection on the left. The global surface water is a more detailed product. Of course, it's done on a global scale. And then with spectrum mixing analysis, we're able to reveal more water, especially in the areas that have this mixing of vegetation, soil, and water. And then you can see that we have a higher frequency of water detection and the extent of water detection compared to global surface water. So we published this methodology. I have the reference here. And then we operationalize this surface water subpixel classifier, the SWSC, in the mapbiomas water program. So now mapbiomas has the capability to do this on a monthly basis. With this paper, we had this signal showing that the wetlands during the dry season are losing water. So that was an astonishing result. When I saw the results, I contacted several specialists that work in wetlands in Brazil, in the Amazon, to see what was going on. And this is the clear signal that we have some decadal cycle of water extension and compression in the Amazon, and then in the second cycle, it is not coming back, declining. So we have there now updated to 2025. So we have some increasing, but it's still in this overall trend of reducing surface water in the region. In 2023, in 2024, we have these mega droughts, and we use this technology. We combine the optical spectrum mixing model with Sentinel-1 data, and we were able to detect the loss of surface water associated with this drought. 3.3 million hectares were lost in 2023, 4.5 million hectares of surface water lost in 2024. We are very interested in the impact of this on the communities. Most of the protected areas were affected. It also affected the riverside community, the fishery communities, indigenous communities, African Brazilian quilombola communities. So we are really addressing now the challenges that these communities are facing, especially with the decline of their bioeconomy products, which is important for their economic sustainability and also well-being. It's really critical, the impact or negative impact on their well-being associated with those extreme climate events. So that's the hypothesis that I mentioned before that called my attention to start studying. And this is really ringing the alarm now. We have a very strong communication strategy with videos, talking to the community, understand the problems, and trying to communicate this through the social media, and also participating in the national committees about water management. And this study is also expanded to the Pan-Amazonia region. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. We support from Moore Foundation and also in collaboration with the HISG network, which is a network of NGOs that operate in the Amazon, Pan-Amazonia countries. We were able to improve the mapping of wetlands. We did a detailed literature review about the efforts, global and regional efforts to map wetlands in the Amazon. We applied a harmonization methodology to integrate these maps, and we use this harmonized map to train a new model based on random forest, combining optical data using the spectral mix analysis with radar, Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, available in Google Earth Engine, topographic and structural index obtained from digital elevation models such as PubDem, and also we were able to understand using ground stations this temporal dynamics of the rivers. It's all integrated in the Google Earth Engine, and using random forest, we were able to classify the most important classes of wetlands. The overall accuracy was 82.5%. We have some challenge mapping the coastal zone wetlands where we have a lower accuracy, but like forest floodplain class has 92.5 accuracy. And now we have a time series. The data is updated up to 2024. We are able to capture the dynamics of wetlands and understand the transitions among these classes. And we are also integrating now detailed ALOS pulsar data to understand the inundation pulse. This is in collaboration with SAR Vision on Netherlands. They did all this analysis, and we are integrating in our model. Now we are wrapping up this new paper showing the temporal dynamics of Landcover wetland mapping in this inundation pulse. It correlates really well with our map. They were done independently. And using this information, we are investigating the transitions, what changed from wetland to land, and the transitions among the wetland classes, and from no wetland class or land to wetland. Sometimes you have, this is mostly associated with reservoirs. So the drivers of pressure on wetland, including deforestation, fire, mining, urban expansion, reservoirs, hydroelectric dams. We're measuring annually the impact. Surface water loss and precipitation loss and gain. We use the MapBiome monthly data and the data from the European Space Agency about precipitation, and did some trend analysis using the main candles test with p-value 0.05, and then we are detecting surface water loss temporally, and also the precipitation trends monthly. Both are monthly. And this it's a proxy for the impact of potential extreme climate events. You have inundations, you have droughts, and this may be captured by surface water law and the trends in precipitation. And you compare this with the anthropogenic drivers and the intrinsic wetland dynamics. The idea is try to decouple the land cover change drivers, the climate change drivers, infrastructure drivers, and try to understand those impact on the wetlands. And of course, with this information to propose conservation management, we are now proposing the expansion of Ramsar sites and new protected areas to protect those very unique ecosystem in the region. Let me move on. So I'm almost completing my presentations. We are in this current scenario of 1 plus 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is not ideal, but it's where we have to be. And this will likely be sustainable for agriculture and maintaining the current cover, forest cover, land cover classes, including wetlands. And this will guarantee that this ecosystem will be functional. It's not a manageable scenario, but if we keep increasing deforestation and also if the climate change is not controlled, if we don't stop emissions of fossil fuels, we will likely reach the plus 2.0 degrees Celsius, which is a critical threshold that can lead us to a tipping point scenario. And the most drastic scenario is to go plus 3.0 degrees Celsius, which is a catastrophic scenario. I don't want to go in this way. I don't think anybody wants to do that. But we are in this limit between this preferred scenario and the critical threshold. So we have to stop deforestation, to work really hard to have zero deforestation, accelerate the regeneration, forest regeneration. And I'm going to wrap up with this potential intervention for avoiding these critical catastrophic scenarios. And it is clear that we have advanced in monitoring and forecasting tools. Claudia showed us a great literature review and also the system that INPE and others are implementing. So there is no problem about information. The information is ready for action. That's the message. And how to go about that. That's, I think, it's a really important task for our communities is to go beyond generating information. We have to help the governments, local, state, and federal governments to use the information proactively to secure the forest, to conserve the forest and protect the aquatic ecosystem in the region. As I said, the data must drive stakeholder action. That's the ultimate goal of our projects here at Amazon. And for that, we need to do a lot of collaboration and work closely with the partners to demonstrate the implementation of sustainable intervention for conservation management of natural resources in the region. Scientific challenge. We still need to work hard to decouple those drivers. We have the data. It's really a hard problem. I think we are scratching the surface of this, how to decouple those drivers of land cover change, infrastructure expansion, climate change. And this will allow us to identify the cause of the problems. What's really the most impactful driver in certain region, in a certain region. So it's really important to support this type of knowledge. It's important to address and implement effective policies. That's why we need to move towards this direction. In the challenge is adaptation. As I said, the communities are being hit by extreme climate events already. We have efforts in our wetland mapping project to actually identify the priority areas for conservation. We have a multi-criteria model that we can run scenarios and identify the most vulnerable aquatic and wetland ecosystems and use this information. I'll give you a quick example. There is no Ramsar sites in Venezuela in the Amazonia region. And our model identified potential areas for a new Ramsar site in the Amazon of Venezuela. So this information now is in the hands of the Venezuelan parliament. They are discussing this information. There is a potential to use the information to create new Ramsar sites. Zero deforestation, it's really possible. Brazil is pushing this. We have decreased deforestation, but we have to be very ambitious and keep pushing down the annual deforestation. And on top of that, we also need to push the forest restoration campaign, expand forest regrowth. It's another way to improve the stability of the region. And then to conclude, deploy sustainable development models. This is really important because to keep the forest stand, we need to have the bioeconomy increase. Right now, the economic drivers are cattle ranching, agriculture, logging. So it's really hard to compete with those with those economic forces to keep the forest stand. So we need to push this bioeconomy as a large potential for global markets, and also all the tropical TFF mechanisms. It is important also to support the communities that are governments that really are keeping the forest stands. So just to conclude, in recognition of our systems and implementation of projects, Amazon was awarded the Champions of the World UN award last year in the science and innovation components of the world. So we are very proud and happy to have received, and there is more responsibility now to demonstrate the use of this technology to protect the Amazon rainforest. Those are our partners. Google Earth Engine was really important since the beginning. I was involved since the beginning in the conception of the Google Earth Engine. And we had one of the first applications running Google Earth Engine back in 2012, which is our deforestation system monitoring system called SADI. HISG is the network that we operate in the Pan-Amazonia. Another network is MapBiomas. And we have several donors. Those donors, we have over the past 3 decades, several donors that supported us, but the most recent developments had been supported by this donor. And final message is there is time yet to put the Amazon in a conservation protection pathway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Carlos, for that very insightful presentation where you've been able to demonstrate various applications and also the innovations that you have brought about in monitoring the Amazon forest, the roads, surface water, wetland mapping, as well as Dr. Claudia was able to cover the various databases, methods, and trends, and of land cover maps and global maps. So I'd like to go straight to the questions. We have some questions in the chat. For Dr. Claudia, if you've not been able to see them in the chat, I will read them out. Or I can just quickly share them on the screen. So the first question These first four are for Dr. Claudia by Deraja because of the evolution of classification algorithms is using current machine learning methods like random forest and support vector machines a wrong approach. The second one by Ayele is Google Earth Engine AI free to use or is it a commercial category? The third question is which way of classifying land use Landcover or method is recommended for modeling use, object-based, simulated, and so forth. And then question 4 is for regional water loss, is GRACE data, probably this one is the fourth question would be for Dr. Carlos. So kindly, Dr. Claudia, kindly answer question 1 to question 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions and interest. So I will just answer very briefly through all of them, starting by the one. Could you please leave them open? The questions sheet on the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Because of the evolution of classification algorithms is using current machine learning methods like random forest and support vector machine wrong approach, the word wrong is not the right word, so to say. There is no right or wrong. Sometimes people do not have the expertise to handle advanced DL algorithms, or sometimes the problem is not so complex. So it depends on the computational infrastructure, the level of expertise of the user, the needs, the purpose, the number of classes that we say the legends level. So there is no right and wrong. As I showed during my presentation, lots of word and regional databases still rely on random forests and other machine learning methods, including American and European ones. So no need to say random forest is outdated. No. We are in progress. Now we have an interface where you are mixing them, but no right and wrong. That's not the point. Question 2. Is GEAI free to use or its commercial category? Actually, I have not yet used GEAI. I have just researched its functionalities for this presentation. So perhaps Dr. Carlos could answer this because he's an active user of GEE. Question 3. Which way of classifying land use Landcover is recommended for modeling use? Object-based, simulated, random forest-based, or pixel-based screen digitalization? Well, in fact, this depends, as I told you in the first question, on a set of factors that are associated with the user, which is computational infrastructure, level of expertise, problems complexity, size of the study area, and the purpose, the legends level. So there is no ideal classification because classification usually is an input for modeling. But if a person wants to use object-based traditionally with fuzzy logic, k-nearest neighbors, no problem. Geobia associated with machine learning, no problem. Sometimes some people even mix deep learning and Geobia. They make a pixel-based DL classification. They throw a segmentation over it, and then they reclassify the first classification using the majority vote approach. So there are manifold options for classifying data. And I wouldn't say this one is preferred. It depends on which method the user actually domains. This is the point. So now I ask Dr. Carlos, please, to continue answering the questions.
Thanks, Claudia. I think for the Google Earth Engine, the platform is free for educational research purpose in NGOs. So you have to register and fill up a form, and they will evaluate if your application fits this non-commercial fee license. So there is a new commercial license which gives you more computational power. They have different levels of computational power that for commercial license. So you can pick depending on the demand you have. For AI integration with GE with AI, you have to run the models you integrating with Google Cloud Platform. So you can build your AI model outside Google Earth Engine and integrate the model in Google Earth Engine afterwards. So all the Google Cloud Platform AI services are not free. You can have some days testing, but with very limited. We tried the Vertex AI, which is very expensive. We are using more regular cloud computing offered by Google Cloud Platform. My suggestion is when you run those models, when you train those models, be ready for that because it can be costly. You cannot iterate several times because the bill will be high. So it's based on our experience. Yeah, perhaps the GRACE question. We have correlated the surface water data with GRACE. It was a graduate student from Princeton University that got interested in this. The GRACE data has a very large pixel size, so we have to work with the scale of watersheds, large watersheds, and she did the analysis for the Tocantins River watershed, which is a very large watershed in Brazil, and we're able to correlate the depletion of groundwater with the surface water. So there is a high correlation. This was published in some seminars, congress, not published yet in the scientific literature, but it points that it's possible to use the GRACE data to estimate underground water, but we are not doing that. We are not using it. It was just a pilot test, which shows promising for that.
Thank you so much for those responses. There's a last question for you, Dr. Carlos. And there's a last question for you. This was by, sorry, I'm not able to pronounce the name very well. So the question is, thank you for the excellent presentation. Regarding logging activities, how do you handle any discrepancies between SAD and DTA or PRODES alerts, if they exist? Is there a cross-validation protocol that uses very high-resolution imagery, such as Planet or SkySat, to confirm polygons where the algorithms of each institution differ?
Okay, thanks for the questions. I want to clarify one point. Logging and deforestation are different processes. So selective logging creates some damage, but it don't remove entirely the forest cover. There are dedicated systems for that. So we have the CMAX, and also know that INPE has methodologies to track selective logging. And so SAD addresses deforestation and forest degradation, but forest degradation is a broad category, which includes forests that were damaged by fires and logging and deforestation. So we have a protocol, start with the protocol. We have a protocol, a change detection model based on NDFI that we run on a monthly basis. And it's a simple change detection model. It's published in the Google book, Google Earth Engine book. There is a dedicated chapter for I will share the link afterwards. But then once you have the change detection result, we spend like 1 week assessing this result. There is a team that is dedicated to validate this result. We use time series data, more, if available, more detailed spatial resolution data. The model, the SAGE model uses Sentinel-1 and 2 and Landsat data. But if there is a need to do, like we have additional like CBERS data, we can compare it. But we follow this validation protocol, and we trained an AI model to support the validation now. It was led by the Brazilian Pure Mathematics Institute, IMPA, based in Rio. They developed a SAGE AI validator model, which is now comparing with the human intelligence approach to validate the data. Is now matching 90% of agreement between what the analysts are validating against the validation, which is fully automatic. Now, SAGE is operating with these two modes. We are almost ready to focus more on reduce the time for validation because the AI is doing a great job. Regarding the eventual discrepancies between SAGE deforestation data and DETE deforestation, which are both alert systems. Eventually, it happens, and we have over these years a very good relationship with the team. Claudia Almeida, any very similar name, Claudia Almeida. We also have Claudia Almeida in INPE, which coordinates the TE. I think he's still coordinating that. We have an open channel dialogue. We discuss the change, but it's usually explained technically, the changes. It's mostly sometimes we go out of phase in our methodology. But when we compare SAGE versus the TE, like annually, the statistics are really highly correlated. And I'm glad that we have an open channel dialogue with INPE to discuss eventual discrepancies and explain to the overall society why it's not exactly matching the result in a particular time. Claudia, would like to complement that from INPE side?
No, thank you. I think you answered it perfectly. That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for responding to the questions. We do not have any more questions on the chat or in the Q&A section. I'd like to hand over to Dr. Laurent as we wind up. Thank you very much, all participants as well as our presenters.
Okay, so thank you to our two lecturer. Very interesting presentation, interesting questions too, discussion. And thank you once again to Patricia, to Lashmi for the organization of this very interesting webinar. 2 hours exactly, but it's very full of very interesting information. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you very much. Lakshmi, kindly could you give us information about joining ISPRS as well as a student consortium, and also availability of the presentations and recordings?
Thank you so much, Patricia. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Carlos and Claudia, for a very nice presentation. I'm sure that it has been useful to our attendees, as I can notice most of them, they are students and young professionals, and also I could notice some of them were from our student chapters. So thank you to them as well for joining, listening and asking questions to our speakers. And in terms of presentation slides, usually we record the session and upload the videos on our YouTube channel. It may take 1 to 2 weeks while doing so. I mean, if speakers they wanted to share, if they want to share their slides, I can also email the slides to our participants. So I leave it up to our speakers if they want to share the slides. Otherwise, video will be made public on our YouTube channel, and its name is ISPRS SC. And in terms of ISPRS SC, we are students and young professionals organization who are representing officially representing ISPRS. And we've been organizing different activities like summer schools, webinars, networking events to our especially targeted to students and young professionals. So you can find even more information on our website. As I can see, we're already running out of time. Just to tell you two more things. So we have recently opened applications for the new board of directors. So if anyone wants to be the part of incoming board of directors, please feel free to go to our website, submit your applications if you qualify for the positions that we've opened. And hope to see one of you might be presenting or giving presentation that I'm giving now next year. And the next thing is we are going to organize several activities during ISPRS Congress. We have summer schools, we have networking sessions, and youth forum as well. So if any of you are going to participate in Congress, we'll be making a volunteer call soon. So keep yourself updated with our email communication, or you can also find more information through our social media as well. And we'll be happy to have you joining our volunteering team during the Congress, or if not volunteering, you can simply come to our stall. We'll be having our stall as well, and we can we'll be happy to talk with all of you regarding your interest in joining Student Consortium, or if you want to organize any kind of similar events or activities at your universities also, so we can talk more about that as well. So having said that, I would like to wrap up my talk as well. Over to you, Patricia.
Okay, thank you all. Because of time, I think we are able to close the meeting officially. And I wish everyone a very good day, a good night, and a good evening. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.